my watch, we have 5 o'clock. My computer says 5:02. So at this time, I bring this open, call to order this beginning session of our February meeting for Macon County Board of Education. At this time, I would entertain a motion. I think we need to go into executive session. Mr. Henn, is that correct? Would you read the reason, please?
It's GS 143-318.11A8 to formulate plans by local Board of Education relating to emergency response to incidents of school violence, or to formulate and adopt the school safety components or school improvement plans by local Board of Education or a school improvement team. And also, I'm sorry, Ms. Shields, if the board members get my email earlier, do you know of anything else that's on tonight's agenda that needs to be addressed in closed session? Because if you do, we can do it all now and not. There's nothing.
Do it afterwards.
Right. There's nothing that says you have to go through your whole agenda, decide what's going to be in closed session after. If you know of anything now, we can do it now. If not, that's the only reason, the one I just cited.
Well, with the board's permission, there was a couple of things on the consent agenda that I'd like to discuss. So I'd also ask the board if they would to consider including in our movement to executive session to include moving the consent agenda into executive session also.
For personnel purposes, so that's GS 143-13.11A6.
No.
The motion needs to cite A6 and A8.
All right, do I hear a motion to cite both A6 and A8 to allow the board to go into executive session?
Make a motion to go into executive session for A6 and A8.
Have a motion, do I hear a second? Second. Have a motion second, all in favor, signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? So moved. So at this time, we want to welcome everyone for coming to our February board meeting. Tonight will be a little bit different. We've already gone into executive session, so bear with us. We're going to come out of executive session, then go into our regular meeting. So it's a little bit different, but so bear with us. We'll get there. Where we go? Do I hear a motion to come into open session at this time?
I make a motion to come into open session from closed session.
There. Have a motion here, a second. Second. A motion second that the board return into open session. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. At this time, the other thing we always do is we always like to let everyone to stand where we have a moment of silence. And I think tonight we have for a pledge of allegiance about the Mountain View Intermediate students. Is that right? So if you don't mind, we'll let those guys come on in and we'll tell them what we're doing. Mr. Sutton, would you introduce them to us here in just a second, or we have someone to introduce them after we do that?
I'll be glad to.
Yeah. First, at this time, we'll have our moment of silence first. Tommy, as always, I'll turn to you if you would, please.
Well, it's like each time I've said, it's to remembrance our veterans. We have soldiers scattered all over the world at all times, and we don't think enough about them. Being a veteran, I realize that, I guess. And so at this time, we'll have a moment of silence to hopefully keep our sailors, soldiers, and whatever safe from all harm the rest of the time they're deployed. Thank you.
Now we have the moment of our pledge of allegiance. We always are thrilled to have some of our students come and they lead us. So we put them on the spot, which they know. So, Mr. Sutton, would you introduce our children?
They're planning to introduce themselves, so we'll
Okay.
We'll start on this end. You tell them, here we go. Plug in and one right here.
Jordan, 6th grade. Faith Willow, 5th grade. William Shields, 5th grade. Child Wilson, 5th grade.
Amy Shepherd, 5th grade. Lisa, 5th grade. Adrian, 6th grade.
All right, guys. We'll follow your lead.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. They all knew it. I watched the lips. I think they all knew what it was. Good deal.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just wanted to
Ms. Sutton, again, please pass our appreciation to all of those students and their parents when you can, please.
Will do.
That's great. And I think at this time, one of our board members, Mr. Paul, would like to make a statement or do something. I'm not sure. Go ahead.
I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you. I think I'm correct in saying that Mr. Breedlove was one of the head people to do the purple at our school, Franklin High School. And I know Gary Shields participated, and there was a lot of leaders from our community.
My twin brother.
And I just wanted to say thank you. There's people out there that I have a very good friend who lost his mother just within months of that happening after she found out had that cancer. And I just think it's a wonderful thing that you guys did that makes us all aware, and it's a great thing to raise money and a great thing to get out there and do what you guys did. And I just wanted to say thank you from a lot of people who have a lot of great things to say about it. And I just think it's wonderful and y'all are amazing to do so.
My excuse, I'm not sure what Mr. Shields' excuse was. Mine is I wasn't asked, I was pretty much told by a certain lady that's what she wanted me to do.
It takes a real man to put on
What can I say? So, do it. Is that not right, Mr. Shields?
I blame my twin brother.
But anyway, I think we raised money. I think we'll try to make that very short. Next on our agenda is we'd like to have what we call, actually next, I'm sorry, I'm trying to jump, is approval of our minutes. I think all the board members had a chance to review the minutes from our previous meeting. Were there any corrections, additions?
Mr. Chairman, I have one.
Okay.
At the top of page 2980, just about the third one down, the item about the school resource officer grant needs to have added in, because I think the board did this, the approval of the amount that was authorized to be forwarded along with that agreement, which Angie looked up for us, and I think it's $39,722. That needs to be added to those minutes.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes with the addition that Mr. Henning requested.
I have a motion to approve with the correction that's pointed out. Do I hear a second? I think I had it a second. Any other comments, corrections? None? If not, all in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Now comes the part that I look forward to. Tonight is very special for me. I've actually exerted a little bit of prerogative. Dr. Baldwin, where I'm going to take, I usually let him, tonight I'm going to take part, and I'll try to explain to you why that is the case as we go in, Chris, so if you don't mind. First, we're going to recognize, and I think Mrs. Cotton is here. Diane, if you would you get up and explain what it exactly is that we're doing in this first group of youngsters is what we're honoring them for, please?
These are our state winners in the Young Author contest that is put on by the North Carolina Reading Association. And our students are given just a title or a general idea of what they can write about, and they can take it any direction that they want to go. This year's theme was Happily Ever After. And we had quite a few state winners. So tonight they're going to honor those state winners.
I think y'all see why when you hear the last name of one of the recipients, why I'm especially proud tonight, shall we say.
Maya Baird.
Is Maya here?
Can we say it there?
Yeah, once it come through.
Maya Baird.
Is she outside?
Maya Baird.
Maya Baird.
Sarah Baird.
Sarah Baird.
Chloe Breedlove. I bet she's here.
I think she's here. And stay up, yeah, we're going to take a picture.
Joan Dirtler.
She's here.
Colin Reller.
He's a basketball man.
Brianna Teague. Yes, here, Taj Roman.
Taj Roman.
Dakota Sherburne. Vanessa Murphy. Katie Munoz.
Kara Love. Did I get that right?
Media wants to get pictures, so.
Scoot together, and. Go right there. You gotta get up there, Dan. No. You gotta go. Okay. Okay. I'm just taking a time to worry about it. Okay.
Got it?
Thank you all, like I said, and thank you for doing this, Diana. I think it shows again why we feel we have the best school system and the best students in the state. Maybe on the hall, we'll let those. Now, I think we have some other recipients. Are they on the hall if they want to come on in?
Some student athletes.
Student athletes, I just have everybody come on in. Guys, we're going to be heading to Why don't y'all just come on up and line up over here so we can see you and brag on you a little bit and go from there.
We're very successful at the North Carolina High School Athletic Association playoffs recently. We've got state champions in 4x800 relay. This time I'd like to recognize Caleb Albrecht, Harrison Connor, Sean Marcy, and Emmanuel Williams.
Yeah, they're all.
Caleb, or Emmanuel,
We have the names.
Harrison,
Yeah, they're all, I think we have four names are all listed.
Sean. Caleb's not here?
Safeguarding for us, I think.
We also want to recognize at this time the men's diving state champion, 2A state champion, Ryan Ballard. Also, Ms. Taylor Combs was third place in women's diving. Women's pole vault state champion, Danielle Brown.
Is she here?
One more, I swear.
Guys,
Coach
thank
Howard,
you.
everything you're upset about these?
They work hard and proud of them.
They're outstanding students, outstanding student athletes, and outstanding people.
That's why I'll say this, when I was talking to our superintendent today, we were talking about, we don't all, these are one of the special things sometimes on athletics, they overwhelm, but the first thing Dr. Baldwin had to say about this group was, not only are they superb athletes, but they're mainly superb students, which is even better. And I think as far as our spotlights, I think that did it. Dr. Baldwin, do we have anything else in that section? Next on our agenda is what we have, what we call public comment. This is a time for those that may be in business for the first time where we give those in attendance a chance to address the board on whatever issue you may have on your mind. We did have a sign-up sheet, which we'll go by first. However, after we hear those two, if there's someone here that did not know we had a sign-up sheet you'd like to address us, by all means, just raise your hand, we'll recognize you and listen to what you have to say. First on our list is one of our educators, Darlene Fromby.
Hey, Chairman and members of the board. The teachers in our county are committed to developing all of our students into thoughtful and responsible lifelong learners. We devote our full intellectual abilities to providing high-quality instruction that not only builds students' intellect, but their character as well. We seek to maintain positive relationships with all of the families at our school, and we recognize the intrinsic worth of every student and every family. We are colleagues and collaborators who work together to help our students succeed. We believe without any doubt or hesitation that asking 25% of our teachers to forfeit their career status in exchange for a small bonus is 100% misguided. We believe that the improvement of teacher quality and of public schools can only come through meaningful support for all teachers. While competition can be an effective motivator for some things, our teachers are united in the belief that collaborating with colleagues, not competing against them, is the best way to improve our schools. Making us compete for money will not push us to work any harder or smarter than we already do every day. Policies like these, which seek only to weed out bad teachers, are eroding the professionalism of teachers across our country. Because teacher working conditions are student learning conditions, perhaps we should focus on finding ways to keep and support them instead. We have signed petitions, I think you're aware of it. I have 3 with me from teachers signing from East Franklin, Mountain View, and Hertuga. I have been informed that we have 100% signed at South Macon, Iola, Highlands, Union Academy, and 94% at Franklin High School. So we, the undersigned, stand united in urging you, the members of our school board, to join the following school boards and pass a resolution to the North Carolina General Assembly in opposition to this demoralizing policy. And these are the 11 school boards that have passed resolutions. Pitt School Board, Pender School Board, Craven School Board, New Hanover School Board, Watauga School Board, Mitchell School Board, Alexander School Board, Iredell School Board, Guilford School Board, Durham School Board, and Cumberland School Board. I have signatures and sample school board resolutions. So if you would review that. These are based on the resolutions that were filed by Durham and Pitt. So I ask that you would consider those.
Ms. Froman, are you leaving this with us?
Yes.
Those
are your copies.
We'll make sure it's our copy. We'll take it back. Okay. We'll turn it over to our superintendent.
As Ms. Bromwich said, we have had several of these, like the better term, petitions. These were teacher generated. They were not from the administrators. And I felt like that's important. We wouldn't want to put undue pressure on anyone to make a decision one way or the other from the administrators. It's obvious that teachers are united in opposition to this legislation, and I've got to say that in my dealings with this board, no one on this board has expressed any support for the idea that only 25% of our teachers are worthy of a raise, and on the same hand saying that 75% of our teachers are undeserving of a raise. That has not been the intent of this board. This legislation did not originate from this board, and it's not something that I as a superintendent support, and I won't say anything else regarding what the board's feelings of that are. I'm sure that they can voice those opinions themselves, but it is, however, the law at this point says the superintendent shall make these recommendations whether he wants to or not, whether he feels like it's a good decision or not. And it also says the board will. offer those contracts. So that's where I am as superintendent. The board may decide something different as we move forward. That's my position.
Yeah, we will be, I think, later in our agenda, we'll be talking, Dr. Baldwin will be making a presentation to us, and at that time, if the board has any further discussion on this, we'll approach it at that time. Second, we have Mr. John DeVille has signed on to address the board.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Baldwin, thank you, Darlene. Well, where is she? Thank you for your eloquent comments. I can't say anything better or more profound than what she has said about the 25% plan. I just want to bring a few other things to the media and the public's attention. I first want to thank the board, this board, and I want to thank Dr. Baldwin publicly for everything that they have done, standing with the teacher corps, the faculty and staff of Macon County Schools ever since this new legislation was handed down. Some of you know Macon County Schools was the first school system in North Carolina to unanimously support a resolution opposing the 25% plan, opposing the end of tenure, opposing the voucher plan. Dr. Baldwin had for us over at Franklin High School a couple weeks ago an outstanding question and answer session with Dean Shatley, law firm, giving us all the details of the program, of what would be entailed of signing on to this 25% plan. It was an outstanding program. I'd also like to bring to the public's attention that last Friday, North Carolina judge has found the voucher program to at least be worthy of temporarily restrain the voucher program. I'd like to underscore the fact for the media and for the public, what does it mean when 100% of teachers in a school sign a petition for something? Getting 100% of people to agree on something is Herculean, and this was voluntary. There's no arm twisting. This is just, people are so outraged, and they come together 100%, school after school, or 94%. I don't know if you can find anything like it in Macon County or North Carolina history where you're finding this type of unified opposition to legislation.
John, can I make a point right there real quick? And going back to what I said about undue pressure, most obviously the concern that the board has had, the principals have had, that no teacher feel like they've been pressured to make a decision one way or the other. And I can say that since this legislation came down, I've not heard a single complaint from a teacher about undue pressure to make a decision one way or the other. And I commend our entire faculty for that. Thank you, John.
Thank you. The last thing I'd like to point out to the public, to the media that are here, is that on February 11th, the Guilford School Board unanimously decided to willfully break the law. I would not ask this board to do that. I don't think we have the resources and the stature to take that on in court. But I am very thankful that the Guilford board made that decision. And I think that that should be a reason for a moment of pause for our state legislators when a county as diverse and as large as Guilford County voted unanimously with 200 teachers in attendance to say, we are going to break the law. That's how bad this law is. I think is an overwhelming point of reflection. So I thank this board so much for all of your support with everything that we have had to do in this fight, and I look forward to working with all of you over the next several months, and hopefully we can turn this around. Thank you very much.
One item, I think, I'll basically move on. If I understood right, Guilford County is 72,000 students, is that right?
I think so, yeah.
About 72,000, so.
Greensboro.
It's the Greensboro area, so for them to step up and do that, they've earned my respect and admiration. That's huge, so enough said. Is there anyone else, those were the two we had on our sign-up sheet. Was there anyone else here that'd like to address the board? If you would, just raise your hand, and I'd like to recognize you and ask you to introduce yourself. Doesn't look like I have any takers. Okay. If not, then we'll move on into our published agenda. Once I get there, I'll go better this way. First is our consent agenda. All the board members had a chance to look that over. any questions of Mr. Moore or Dr. Baldwin concerning the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Again, any further questions? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. If the media will grant me one exception, going forward, I think y'all gathered at the last meeting we had. Any vote we're having now, the chairman is joining into those votes. It no longer is a thing where I have to make a statement that Mayor, please understanding moving forward, whenever we make a motion, it's a 5-0 vote. Or if I'm going to disagree with something, I am now required to voice my position to vote that way. So it's a change. We've made this change last meeting. I just want to point that out to everyone. That is how we now operate. Okay. Personnel. Mr. Moore, do you have anything, any updates, any changes from the time this was put into the agenda?
No, sir, not at this time.
That's good. Policy. Franklin High fundraisers. I don't see Mr. Woody.
Woody
I think he's at a basketball game.
He's asked me to
Dr. Baldwin.
fill in for him tonight. I'll do the best that I can.
Again, I think the board, we've agreed, we shall do this, if you would just cover all 3 of those, or is there 4? All 4 in mass, and we'll approve them
Okay.
all at the
This
same time.
first one is the FBLA at Franklin High School. Expects to raise about $500 selling donated hand-knitted hats and scarves back in the community. Also requesting to do a yard sale in March or April. Especially, there's 2 in that.
I think I had there were 2, but we not.
There was 2 on FBLA. There was, and the next one was the dance team and cheerleading team.
Right. So be varsity cheerleading and FHS dance.
Yeah, they were going to raise money for equipment and camp this summer. Basically, the 2 things that dance and cheerleading were asking for is to run some clinics, one in March and one in April. And then women's soccer is asking to sell tumblers, insulated cups for uniforms and soccer balls.
That's going to take place during game time, correct?
Yes, from March the 2nd through March the 15th.
Okay.
Game day March.
Does any board member have any questions of Dr. Baldwin?
Make a motion to accept fundraisers as read.
Have a motion to accept the Franklin High School fundraisers.
Second.
And have a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Same thing, Mr. Masden's not going to be here. Macon Middle School basketball.
This is
Request
not a
Dr. Baldwin.
fundraiser, this is just a request to basically do a team lock-in.
I'd say if they're willing to do it, let them have
I think the basketball team will go stay overnight. It looks like they have plenty of chaperones there, so it should be good.
I make a motion to accept this overnight. And it's a great thing for the kids. I mean, my kids have loved doing it, and I think my hat's off to them for giving those kids the opportunity to have a great time together and celebrate their season, so.
Have a motion for approval. There is a second. Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? So moved. Good.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Dr. Baldwin a question?
You can.
And Mr. Moore, I know we're going to have student request here regarding playing sports Macon Middle School. Is that on down the?
I'm going to do that at the discussion portion after we speak about gym padding and cost. I'm going to add that if I may.
The reason I'm going to bring to the attention Mr. Parker and his son are here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's who will be speaking, Mr. Parker, on your situation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. I knew it was there, and I'll be honest with you, I kind of got an answer more of that while we were in session, so.
I couldn't find it. So
Okay.
I thought that really.
Okay, we'll get there quick. Mr. Bowles, South Macon Elementary School Handbook.
Yes, there's only 3 changes. First one is dealing with the school bus, where we eliminated the sentence, about cameras on the buses, because we don't have any. And the second one was on corporal punishment. Change that to be where it says will only be administered with prior permission from the parent, which would eliminate the form, you know. And then the other one, we added a section for the forms, the multitude of forms on pesticides and so on and so forth that we have that are on the website. We listed those in the handbook.
Make a motion to approve the changes in the minutes for South Macon.
Motion here, second. Second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? So, that's good, Missy. Technology plan, Tim.
Every couple of years, we're asked to rewrite or revise our technology plan. This is a revision from the current technology plan that we have. It's due to the state board by June 30th, I think. It'll be approved by then, go into effect on July 1st. This is just a revision. If you have any questions about it, I'd be glad to answer them. Yeah, the impact committee had some input on this, and these are the members of the impact committee here. It's basically a revision from our past technology plan.
It's also necessary for the E-rate, what refunds we're getting in Tim.
Yeah,
So this
we
is
apply for
something
E-rate, we're required to have a technology plan in place. And we do have to provide documentation to our LEA, or to our DEI rep that comes from, and does evaluation on it every year.
I'm impressed, very in-depth. Any questions of Tim? Yeah. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Make a motion to approve the school technology plan as Chairman Brewer presented.
Have a motion here, a second. We all woke up. Replacement board policy number 345, drug-free and alcohol-free workplace. This will be our first reading, Mr. Moore.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, there are a couple of things that are listed that were areas of concern when I asked for feedback. First one being under section B, applicability. The policy does not apply to an employee's consumption of alcoholic beverages that are served at a reception or other similar function that occurs outside the regular workday, and on and on. I know that we've had some questions about that. I do not feel that that is a statement that would be problematic at all. We could eliminate it if this board so chose, but I don't feel like it would be problematic. The second part, under C, reasonable suspicion to search, the observations must be made by a trained supervisor. We need a little clarification of what a trained supervisor is. Does it mean an administrator, or does it mean someone that has been trained in this particular area of expertise, I guess I would say. So we're looking for clarification there before we bring that to you for second reading. On the second page,
Is that clarification coming to you, to John Henning? Is that-
we're going to try to figure out exactly what that means. Yes, I can't clarify.
What I can tell you at this moment is there are some cases that have turned on the fact that the person who did the testing or said that this person needed to be tested had had some training. There are also, on the flip side, there are cases lost disastrously by local government employers that fired people based on suspicions that weren't corroborated. So essentially, I think that what I picture it being is training that would tell somebody, here's what a case to try to move a substance abuse, first a consequence of that at work and in the workplace, what that looks like. Here's the kind of evidence and the quality of evidence you need to have, such as how do you know that that substance is what you think it is, and how do you document what you saw, and how do you also shields that employee who is the supervisor and the board ultimately from accusation that this was a personal vendetta sort of thing. It's important. I don't know what the training itself looks like though, and I think that's what we.
This is first reading.
Yeah, that's what we're going to bring an answer back to you about.
Okay, thank you.
Lastly, under consequences, we had a question from members about this district either furnishing rehabilitation services or paying for such. We're not required to do that. So I just wanted to clarify that before we move forward. And again, this is the first reading. Our primary areas of concern are under B, applicability, what is a trained supervisor, and the fact that we are not required as a district to pay for any treatment. So this is the first reading.
I will also tell you that in looking this back over, I reviewed the general law on, it's mostly federal law on what is, because we're getting into search and seizure sort of territory, what is and isn't in bounds. And I think that this policy is drawn straight down the middle. So in terms of sort of its facial validity, I can tell you that it looks good to me.
Okay, having said that, I guess you're saying about the not paying for that. So that is something that we would want not to do, because not that I don't have empathy for you have an issue, but we're in the business of teaching our kids. We're not in the business of taking care of. And that sounds somewhat cold, but it's still I know it's a board member, it's my responsibility to look after the kids. So we are leaning towards the fact that it's not our responsibility to put it in.
To pay for or provide. And,
right.
And then, like Mr. Moore said, there is no legal requirement to do that. It's just, it would give you the latitude with somebody who had run afoul of this policy to say, we're going to give you a chance if you have gone and you can demonstrate to us that you have completed a treatment program, you can get back in our good graces. Go ahead, Mr. Richards.
I had the same concerns Mr. Coles had, and I believe you clarified it one time before that.
Yes, sir.
Our insurance, or the personal insurance a person has, takes care of that, right?
Well, there is provision for that within our.
In the insurance?
Yes, sir. It would be a copay. I mean, it would not be something that would be entirely free.
And
It would
that
be just as
releases
any
us from
other
the-
doctor's visit.
And I believe that's what releases us from having to.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And if you don't leave that latitude at least, then your policy is going to be, if you violate this policy, you're fired, and it'll be very, very short and not have any chance of redemption in it. So I think that's why it's.
Thank you.
And John, I'll hit you with this, okay, this is no way, cannot be construed, any part of this could be where we're infringing on our employees' rights and their private time. This cannot be, anything about this could be transposed over in that scenario. On Facebook, someone passes a photo of a teacher at a private function. We're not digressing into that territory, is that
No,
right?
sir. No, I think this is, it's all on the up and up.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, this will serve as first reading, and we'll move forward to the next one.
I've always asked you for a motion and approval for first reading.
Okay, thank you. Keep me track. If there's no further questions, I hear a motion that we approve this as the first reading of policy 345. Now, the motion is second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Replacement policy 46, relationship with law enforcement, first reading. Mr. Moore.
Yes, sir. This was actually a combination of our old policy and the new one. What I did is just merge these together because basically they fit pretty well. A couple of issues where people have questioned a couple of things, primarily the schematic diagrams. That was a requirement by law that I'm in the process of trying to procure those from all over the place, because in some situations we've had multiple people work on buildings and campuses. Franklin High is very tough to pull down because you've got different companies that built that campus. But this is a requirement by law, primarily to show places where individuals can enter and exit the building, where doors within the building are located, windows and such as that. So that's something that we're working to do. Law enforcement is aware of it. The other issue was the written understanding between law enforcement and the school system. I shared a couple of things with John, Mr. Henning, that he's going to look over to try to make a fairly simple agreement. We had examples from other counties throughout the state. They were more like contracts of 30 and 40 pages. We really don't want to do that. We have a really good working relationship with law enforcement, just something very simplistic about what our responsibilities are, what we're after there. And that's all we have within this particular policy at this time.
We'll approve this first reading. When we approve this, John, should we have a copy of that agreement that would be attached to this, or what's?
I think, no, sir, I think it's just important that your policy is just that we provide SROs under an agreement with their unit, their department that they work for. But I wouldn't have any specific one because it may need to change from time to time and that sort of thing. I also would tell the board members I have shared with Brian Welch and Chester Jones, who are attorneys for the Sheriff's Department and county respectively, that a proposed agreement, we're working toward it. It may be just pertaining, I think it'll just be pertaining to that SRO that we have the grant for, but we'll be working toward a general SRO agreement for all of them.
Any other questions of either Mr. Moore or Mr. Henning?
Make a motion to approve that reading.
Have a motion that we approve as a first reading.
Second.
And the second, all in favor, say by saying aye. Any opposed? Good, so moved. Policy 355, school safety, first reading.
Yes, sir. Again, this is another requirement from the legislature this summer, but we had a school safety policy in place. This is in addition to it. First, matter of people to do things out of the normal scope of their job, reasonable being that they would just notice things as necessary. We're not asking them to go on patrols or do anything of that nature.
Can I ask why we think that this is necessary?
Why is school safety necessary? Why is the policy necessary? Because it was one of the things that was brought to us by the North Carolina School Board Association.
So it's something that we could request that we take a look at.
Yes.
But I get to say.
Yeah, I didn't, that didn't come out exactly the way I wanted it to.
I wrote Mr. Moore, actually, I think there's going to be several of these coming, as we call it. What we agreed to do was go to the School Board Association and they were sending us notifications about policy. And I think this is just the beginning. We have several of this type.
We were just overwhelmed at the beginning of the year with trying to keep up with the legislation. The school board isn't trying to do that now. We're just
feeding it in.
And I guess my point was, I think our teachers already act this way on a daily basis, and I was just curious why that we felt like it needed to be a policy, because, so that was my reason for questioning.
And again,
I understand now because you're saying that North Carolina's requesting it.
Yeah, and again, this is, I guess it's the choice of this board. It isn't something that's a mandate necessarily. It's something you can decide, well, we don't really need this. Again, it's just a suggestion. Pretty much the School Boards Association sends these out a couple of times a year, and
Mr. Henning's going to add to that to me, I can tell. Go ahead.
Well, what I would tell you about that is, particularly as concerns employee supervision of students, the way that that gets revisited on this board, if you don't, basically what's spelled out in this policy is sort of the law anyway. This is every teacher has a duty to provide supervision that is reasonable under the circumstances. When there's a catastrophe and a child is hurt and a lawsuit results in it, that lawsuit will say the supervision wasn't reasonable under the circumstances, therefore teacher's negligent, therefore he or she is liable, and so is this board, and so is the district. And so this is to try to get in lockstep with our employees and say, this is what will be expected of you. Let's get together about what that is and get on the same page.
Thank you, John. You explained it perfectly, and I can understand why we have to have it. Thank you so much.
At the bottom there of that first page, we did have a question: is a school board member a school employee? My attorney says no, so we just have to be aware that Good Samaritan law is basically coming into practice there. So on the second page at the bottom, again, this seems a bit redundant, but the superintendent must provide local law enforcement, emergency management agencies with schematic diagrams and so forth. And you'll notice the last page of that particular paragraph as well. The superintendent shall provide local law enforcement agencies with keys to the main entrance of all school facilities. Again, that's legislation for this past legislative session. So,
And that's something that we are struggling with as well, as law enforcement is struggling with, because they don't, all of their employees will be 11 keys. And we're trying to sort through those keys, so we're working with them, and that's part of what we're gonna do on the agenda, discuss that emergency task force. We're gonna be discussing things like what we need to do to make our building accessible to emergency personnel.
It's not hard to picture an emergency at Franklin High School and they'd have to get out, huge thin keys and 30 minutes later.
But it's gonna cost money. That's the county commission, we don't have the funds to do some of the things that law enforcement needs to do.
Make a motion, board policy number 355, be approved for first reading.
Motion, I hear a second.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Discussion, policy 770.
Oh, these are the new ones. Evaluation of licensed employees. This is the first reading, or no, wrong terminology. The introduction of this particular policy is tied to, again, recent legislative action. So again, I will send these out to our principal, to our assistant
Let's go
principal.
back up there, Tim.
Members of the board.
Whoa, right here. Number 3, student performance and growth data will be considered as part of the evaluation of licensed personnel. That's the purpose for this new policy. That is something that the state has mandated this year. That has never been in our policy before. So that's, you're asking about changes to these policies. It's another legislative change that's what they're about.
So this is new. Obviously, we'll send these out to teacher groups as well for feedback, so that we can make this something workable for the school district as best we can, I guess. Secondly, the licensure. Again, this is tied to several of our functions. Beginning teacher support program. When does your license convert? How do you renew? There are some things about parental notification as to tied to highly qualified. This is tied to some older legislation, but again, those legal references are listed as well. And thirdly, leave. Our leave policies are sort of all over the place, and what I mean by that is we've got one for this particular area and not the other. So what we're looking at is sort of combining all our leaves. And as soon as I looked at it this afternoon, I realized I'd left one off. So we want to add bereavement leave to this as well. It's just procedures basically found in the North Carolina Public School Benefits and Employee Policy Manual. Again, listed, and we will again send this out so that we receive appropriate feedback. So those are our first looks at those 3.
Those will be coming up for, quote, a first reading at the next meeting, Mr. Moore, am I assuming?
Yes, sir. And I'll have 3 or 4 others to
bring for consideration.
Yes, sir.
I would encourage all the board members to look those over. Let's provide any feedback to Mr. Moore that we might think is appropriate. So when he brings it for the first reading, there won't be any questions and possible changes. So, any questions of Mr. Moore on the discussion of those things that will be coming?
But these policies are basically mandated by law, right?
I think everyone, that's pretty much everyone that's mandated.
So we're mandating changes to our current policy.
not a lot of discussion. You can have discussion, but at the end, it still goes back to the law.
There you go. But maybe we can tweak it if we see something, the wording on it is such that we have some questions about this, gives us a chance to think about that between now and then. Padding cost updates, Mr. Moore.
I took around one of our vendors who provided the pads for the middle school gym and got pictures. And he's in the process of sending me back some quotes to make sure that our areas are safe. So far, I've only received two, South Macon and Mountain View, in addition there to a kind of a strange architectural problem at the gym there. So I don't have a lot of information for you at this point, but I would think that Highland schools will be replaced in the old gym. East Franklin's are nowhere close to what's available at South and available at Iowa Valley. So right now, the South Macon quote was $1,153.73, or $1,153.73. Tylee was with me when we went and looked around through that building, and obviously we're just trying to replace the ones that are in sore need. And the other one is Mountain View, and it's at $2887.67. Nantahala School, you know the area that we're trying to improve there. Highland School, the old gym, and East Franklin. Theirs wasn't right when it was built. It was strange how they didn't pad the walls there. Very strange. So he has told me he will send me more quotes, and what we'll do is we'll get those. I guess we'll take a look, see what we can.
So you think you can incent the first meeting that we can have something by the next board meeting?
I think so. I think so. I don't think Nantahala's going to be literally covered, and the same with East Franklin. I don't think there's a lot of cutouts and problems, because when you start cutting around sockets and light switches and fire extinguishers, it ends up being more expensive because you're taking out the integrity of that mat all the way across the wall. So it makes it a little more pricey when you start adding new stuff.
I can only speak for myself and other board members, but I had no idea that we had this issue. And personally, I think it's something we need to address very quickly, if we possibly can. Kind of gives me cold chills. I think we don't have padding in places where a child might get injured. That's not something I don't like to compliment. Sports word, but I don't want to think about that very much. I would say contemplate very much. So I personally would love to have something by next meeting so we can look at it and see what needs to be done.
Hopefully I'll have that broken down by each school.
Great.
Definitely. I do have an item of discussion. I'm sorry.
That question on padding. Go ahead.
I do have an item of discussion. As you well know, Mr. Maslin's mother passed away on Friday. He had been dealing with or trying to work through a situation at Macon Middle School that was tied to the athletic eligibility of the student. In your packets, I left you, I think Renee printed for you. I hope she did. I think she did. The middle school athletic manual for the state of North Carolina is administered by DPI. It's very simplistic. It's only 35 pages in length. Simple is good. There is a semester rule that is found within that policy, but there's also a hardship rule. And the semester rule is 4 semesters after introduction into 7th grade. The hardship rule is tied to the fact that the board or the conference, and we don't want to go to the conference with an issue like this, that the board can overturn a rule if it feels that it will. I want to read that particular statement because I think it's pretty telling. The local board of education shall have the authority, in response to a request of the principal of the school, to set aside the effect of any other than the age eligibility rule upon the individual student when, in its opinion, the rule fails to accomplish the purpose for which the rule is intended. Now, the 4-semester rule obviously is intended to keep a child from playing 6 semesters of sports at the middle school level. no matter what grades they make. An individual, however, has been brought to our attention, and Mr. Maslin called me this afternoon and asked that it be brought to this board in relation to the specific student that has not participated in middle school athletics, is now in the 8th grade, is completing the 8th grade after they had been homeschooled as an 8th grader the year previous. The child has never participated, I'll make that statement again, and would like to participate in middle school athletics this spring. I agree with Mr. Maslin. I feel like, in particular, this rule does not accomplish the purpose for which the rule is intended in this particular case. And I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman, I've studied this. It's fine.
Actually, Ms. McCall, do you mind? Ms. McCall had it. Mr. Ward, I'm going to come to you. Would you, Ms. McCall had to step out, so
Oh, I'm
basically.
sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I'll say it all again and try to remember it. Tim, just press it. Basically, the way this policy reads, there's a 4-semester rule as far as middle school athletic eligibility is concerned. The board has the right to override that policy. In this particular instance, Mr. Maslin and I feel that this policy would cause undue harm to the individual because this individual has never participated in middle school athletics before. And wants to. Has completed the 7th grade in Georgia, was homeschooled 8th grade in Georgia, has moved to us and is repeating 8th grade, has never participated in middle school athletics.
And will not exceed the age.
Will not exceed the age limit.
And why wouldn't we let him play?
Well, because the way the rule reads, once you begin 7th grade, the clock begins to tick and you've got 4 semesters, but you as a board have the right to overturn that.
All right, Mr. Shields, I interrupt you, go ahead. I know where you're going.
I've studied the hardship, I studied the age, and I studied the semester rule, and I talked to Mr. Parker there earlier tonight, and I make a recommendation this young man be allowed to play baseball, right?
So I think it should be termed that, Mr. Rickett, if you give us the way the motion should read.
Yes, it would be a motion to set aside the effect of the semester eligibility rule for this student because the rule fails to accomplish the purpose for which it was adopted.
I think that's.
He's got 4 semesters, never played in the system.
That's your motion, I take it. We'll follow Mr. Henning's wording. I can draw out that we're overturning the, as a hardship, we're overturning the normal rule to accommodate the young man in these best interests. We have a motion to that effect. We have a motion and a second. I know Mr. Maslin's very much in favor of this, so that's all good for me. So any other discussion?
Mr. Parker, you have anything you want to say?
No, Mr. Moore said everything.
We do expect some wins.
Watching that game tonight with puppets.
Without embarrassing our young. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Good deal. We're very excited that he'd be able to play, and thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Baldwin, curriculum instruction and flexibility on testing.
The state has given us some flexibility on testing as it pertains to populating standard 6 ratings for evaluations of teachers. This pertains only to the NC final exams. These exams are given for the sole purpose of holding teachers accountable. They do not reflect school accountability. We do place a 20% of the student's grade on these NC final exams just to hold them somewhat accountable in the class. But this does not, these do not pertain to school accountability or student accountability beyond the 20% for the final exam. They only pertain to teacher accountability. The state has given us the opportunity to waive some of these tests. One of the questions is why don't we waive them all? At this point, we're not sure exactly how that's going to affect teachers down the road. If you've been reading some of the comments from the General Assembly, they are indicating rather heavily that merit pay is going to be considered with any pay raises that are to come in addition to what the governor and the General Assembly have recently proposed for teachers in years 1 through 10. But it's a strong indication that there will be merit pay will be based on NC final exams as well as the end of course exams and end of grade tests. So we're a little hesitant to waive all of them, but we did make a determination that it was in our best interest and the best interest of our students that we waive grades 4, science and social studies, CTE courses at the middle school, English 4 at the high school, because we also still have the senior projects, which will be basically 2 final exams for those students who are in English 4, and also our world history teachers across the district had some reservations, some serious reservations about the quality of the NC final exam, and those teachers are also evaluated on other NC final exams at the high school level. So for those reasons, we are asking that the board waive the requirements for grades 4, science, social studies, CTE at the middle school, world history at the high school, and English 4 at the high school.
Well, you know, well, Dr. Baldwin, I'd get rid of all those tests if I could, but I will certainly take whatever you will give us, so I'm going to make a motion to.
This waiver requires a signature from a teacher representative. Mr. Bill has signed that. Requires the chairman of the school board and my signature. I have signed it. Mr. DeVille has signed it.
Do you need a motion from the board also?
Yes.
That would be.
Well, then
I think this one needs to attend a motion to approve the recommendations of the superintendent.
And authorize the chair of the board.
Alderman brought us to waive these tests, and at any further time you would like to bring us more back, we would welcome them. And that we would ask that Mr. Riegler sign this, or give him permission for Mr. Riegler.
Have a motion to hear a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? So moved.
About 98% of it, I say. She said, bring more back. 98% of it.
Portfolio waiver. Dr. Baldwin and Ms. Water.
Well,
Let's see, Carol's covered.
she's back there.
Okay, she's hiding.
This is very encouraging. It is an indication that common sense is prevalent or at least existent. We have been given some flexibility in the grade 3 read to achieve law, and that we can develop our own alternative assessments. What we don't want to do is do anything in addition to what we're already doing. There are some local districts that have received some permission to use alternative assessments, and if we deem those necessary, we can also use those. But what we have identified are some things that we're currently doing, that we have done, that could qualify as an alternative assessment. I'll let Ms. Walbridge explain the requirements that we have to follow in order to receive these waivers.
Well, one thing, let's go back, Tim, to that email, because since then, we've met with the principals and we added one more item to this. One of the approved alternative assessments that the state board approved in February was, and we selected to add to this, is a star reading with normal curve equivalent of 50 plus or instructional reading level of 3.0 or higher. So that's one more statement that needs to be added to that. I think the last one I sent possibly to Renee had that on it, but since she's not here, Dr. Baldwin sent the one I sent him. So it'll say a little bit different, but we can always add that other statement to it. Yes, and there's some requirements from, do you want to show them some of those others, that validity assessment? One of the things the local Board of Education has to do is they have to sign the request for these alternative assessments, and you also have to look at the validity of them. And I'll just point you to a couple of statements that might help you decide to approve this. This one actually was sent to us by the state. This is for reading 3D that we're doing anyway. And on page 8, right towards the bottom, there, the conclusion, right there is the part you probably want to read. The gist of that is in that last couple of sentences there, that the statistical analysis demonstrated that the combination of Dibbles Next and TRC has an overall accuracy of 79% in estimating proficiency on the grade 3 North Carolina EOG reading comprehension assessment.
That's pretty good. That's almost what we expect our students to do. We expect our students to be 86% proficient on a test. The test only has to be 79%.
So let me just make sure I'm understanding this right, because this is a huge deal for a lot of parents. I mean, I cannot tell you. I mean, Dr. Baldwin's been kind enough to even have lunches with me because of this, with some parents. And so if we are able to look at these different assessments, whether it's Dibbles or whether it's STARS or these assessments that you have in here, and we approve this,
that
then
will
we will
work.
not hold the student back
Right.
in the 3rd grade.
If they meet these criteria.
Which including
That's
the
an
STARS and the
alternative.
Dibbles and-
That's an alternate to having that 3rd grade reading portfolio that you may or may not have heard about, where the students have 3 passages they have to pass out of, I think they've given them 10 in each standard. So they have like 12 standards, 10 in each standard, they have to pass 3.
So you still are going to be doing the portfolio?
We probably will work.
Which is somewhat.
We won't hold it. It won't be as much of a stressful situation for teachers and students because we'll know that we have other things to fall back on. I think it is that there is some benefit to the portfolio, but that will be up to the determination of the teacher.
But the portfolio doesn't have to be there. These other things can be in place to make it.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm just wanting to make sure
It just,
I understand.
it's kind of an alternative for our students, and this being the first year that they've had the Read to Achieve law has been implemented. That means that, you know, by the time our kids get to 3rd grade, they have gotten Common Core only 1 year rather than kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So there are some gaps in what was expected last year and what's expected this year. So the state's only saying we can do this for 1 year. But still, you know, it's kind of a olive branch for our students this year.
We will have many more of our 3rd graders that will be promoted to the 4th grade because of these alternative assessments. Those students that who will be in summer reading camps and might possibly be retained at the 4th grade level, they probably need that extra reading that extra reading instruction and intervention that they will receive as a result of this. But it won't be 75% or 50% of our 3rd grade.
It won't be them retained in 3rd grade because of it. We still.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are you going to assess students separately to see which one they're going to do, or are they going to take that first test and if they fail it, then they're going to get this second one?
They have to take the EOG no matter what.
And to answer your question, Ms. Evans, we're already doing these things. Our students
We
are
didn't
already
do
doing
anything
reading
extra.
3D.
This is stuff we've already.
So if they're good on this, even though if they fail that test, then you can promote them just because they're
Yeah,
doing good
because
on
we're not
that.
having to give them another test. I mean, like in our 3rd grade, they're taking STARS tests all along. I mean,
Right,
we
it's
do
just
that.
something they're doing anyway,
Yeah,
and most
so
of the
it's-
schools down here actually
And,
purchase
you know,
that on their own.
There's a big question from the superintendents, why do we need the portfolios when we're already doing reading 3D, which is a state mandate? That's not something we had a choice in, we have to be reading 3D. Correct? So
Right.
now we can look at both sets of data, and if the student's able to show proficiency on either one, we can promote both.
But they still have to go, if they fail that EOG, would they still go to the summer school?
Not necessarily if they meet one of these criteria, the alternative criteria.
This whole thing has been really confusing. I mean,
It's
I have a
confusing to
personal-
us because we get a new
I have a
new
3rd grader,
information.
and
Now, and what the benefit is, or what I see as the positive out of this, is that if we have a student that qualifies for summer reading camp at this point, they need it. They're going to need that intervention. And if they need to be held back in the 4th grade until mid-year next year, it's going to be because they need it, not because of one single test or a portfolio that was unreasonable.
Right.
And they've already made some concessions on the portfolio. You know, they're saying instead of you having to make getting 4 out of 5 right on 3, now they say the students have to make an average of 70. So, you know, things are changing a little bit. They're seeing that is a little bit unrealistic for a lot of students at this point in time. I think if Common Core had been implemented 1 grade at a time, you know, starting with kindergarten, it would have made a lot more sense, you know, rather than
I'd
throwing
like to
them
make
in.
a motion that we approve the student portfolio waiver.
Okay, and that's, well, can I say one more thing
Yes,
to do that?
sorry.
The other part of that is you have to look at the validation that we've provided for you and decide if that's sufficient for you, and you have to sign off on that, and Mr. Breedlove has to sign a statement. So, and we have to send it to the state.
Yeah, I second it, and I think in the stars it's included in that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second that we accept the portfolio waiver as presented. Any other discussion? Not all in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Very good. I think that's very, very badly needed. We're going to change a little bit. First, what I'm going to have Dr. Baldwin do on our agenda is go ahead and tell us about the school improvement plans, including school safety plans. Dr. Baldwin, if you would do that, then we'll probably move toward the improvement.
You know, we
Those are
saw,
approved.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moore, some of those policies that he presented, there was a discussion about school safety, and Ms. McCall had a question about that, that I think is pertinent to these new school improvement plans that have that school safety component. Because one of the things that this board has always emphasized to me is that the safety of our schools is of the utmost importance. Then, of course, student academic achievement is secondary to that safety component. But the board has emphasized to me school safety. We've had several high-profile school shootings this past year, and we've also had changes to the gun laws. So, with that in mind, we've had to add components to they pertain to our employees who might have a concealed carry permit. Franklin High School School Improvement Plan, Tim, if you could pull that up, and scroll to the very end. Just right there, arrow, right at it. Scroll to the very end. All of our school improvement plans have this statement that reflects the changes in the gun laws. Now, in addition to that, we also have crisis management plans and that sort of thing that we can't discuss in public because of, we'll keep those things in-house. And that's what we've asked you all to approve, and that's what we looked at in executive session.
I guess for this media, what we've done is we've reviewed all the school improvement plans for Franklin High School, Highlands, Macon Early College, and Macon Middle, and along with Union Academy. So I think we've all looked at those in executive session. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve all the improvement plans as submitted.
I make a motion to accept all improvement plans as submitted.
Sorry. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Dr. Baldwin. And also, I think Nancy was heavily involved in coming up with those, so thank you all for your time and effort. They look very good. Discussion items, our school calendar changes for 2013-2014.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As you know, as you well know, we've missed several days this school year due to inclement weather. At this point, we have lost 58 hours of instruction. We had built in 55 additional instructional hours over and above what state law requires of 1,025 hours. At this point, we're 3 hours over or under what we need to be in compliance with state law. We have remaining in this school calendar 3 teacher work days. Our teachers are on a 215-day contract, but our students are required to be in class for 1,025 hours. We're 3 hours under that requirement if we don't miss any additional days at this point. At our last calendar meeting, it was the consensus of all the teachers at that meeting that we should convert the remaining teacher work days into instructional days so that we could get kids in the classrooms on those days because they felt instruction was extremely important and having those students in class was obviously important to student achievement. So we converted those 3 remaining work days to instructional days.
Can I
That's-
ask a question?
Yes.
My daughter says to me, Mom, on June 13th, is there really going to be instruction? I mean, I thought she
No,
had
there
a
won't be,
valid point.
and that's a good question, and there's been some confusion about that. What there will be on June 13th is the final day of testing. There won't be, that'll be, now what we will have on the previous week is an additional day of instruction, because rather than testing on one of those days, we will be having instruction, getting ready to test. So we
And what instruction
basically,
is that? Because I know some people are not going to be there because they've made plans ahead of time.
they'll have to be there on the 13th if they have a test.
So what do you know what that testing is going to be?
It'll be the final day of testing EOG or EOCs in high school.
In high school? So not middle school or elementary?
Carol?
No, it will be elementary,
Because
unless it's
usually you
makeups.
have 2 or 3
Well,
days
now,
at the end that you have
we-
retesting for high school. Is that not the case?
The state law says it has to be the last 10 days of the
Yeah.
school year.
Last 10 days
So
for
will it not be
EOG.
like the retesting?
The
'Cause that's usually the way it is.
Testing, it will be, you count backwards. So for EOGs, it's the next to last week of school, and for EOCs, it's the last 5 days. So the last 5 days from 13th back would be EOCs, and then the EOGs are going to be in the last 10 days, so they'll be the week before.
So there won't be actually be testing on the 13th?
There won't be what?
Testing on the last day of school?
It depends. For the high school, there would be
So it'll be
possibly.
retesting?
And also at the middle school.
For the elementary 3rd grade, we would try to do retesting at the beginning of that week.
Now, and as a concession, to just your point, should we, at the end of the school year, not use up those remaining 18 hours? Because we have a cushion right now of 18 hours of instruction. If we get to the end of school and we haven't missed any additional days, I would ask the board to allow us to have an early dismissal on the 13th in order to finish testing, any testing requirements that we might have, in school.
And it's possible that we might have more school days, snow days, excuse me.
It is very possible.
And the only other thing that I would ask, am I mistaken, is it Good Friday that we're taking back?
No, we are not. We will not be in school on Good Friday.
Is that correct? Awesome.
Good Friday is on spring break. Is in the
Spring break?
is that Friday inside spring break?
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
So what you're asking is that we basically take the maximum, convert those 3 work days into instruction days. Correct?
Yes.
Motion to approve as presented, change in the calendar.
Have a motion to approve the calendar change as presented by our superintendent. Do I hear a second?
Second.
2, that's good. I'll let Angie pick up which one she wants. Have a
I
motion.
think our girls want that.
Oh, it's already over. What? Anyway. Yeah. That's good. What's good news? I mean, that's, you know. Anyway, have a motion to all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Calendar weather wave for 14-15, Dr. Ball.
At our last calendar committee meeting, we did come up with a calendar that we were ready to bring to the board for approval, but I would suggest that we hold off until the March board meeting before we approve that calendar, because we have missed 7 full days of school as a district. Nantahala has missed 8 school days. The way the law is this year, if you missed 8 school days in any of the past 4 school years, you would qualify for a calendar waiver. So if we were to miss 1 additional day, we could qualify for a calendar waiver, which would allow us to start school 1 week early. And there is a possibility that we can end the first semester by Christmas break if we were able to do that. So we will just give you that update. Be careful with that.
I think next week.
It'll happen at 7:30 in the morning is when it'll happen. We start praying for it.
We'll see. Good deal.
That's my way.
Yeah. Anyway, school report card, Dr. Baldwin.
Kim, can you pull that up, please? Last week, the Department of Public Instruction released the report card. Simply just click on Cartuja Elementary. High student performance. This is, this website is accessible to the public. You can see, Tim, if you scroll down there to the district, you're right there, district. You can see that as a district, our third graders are scoring above the state average in reading and above the state average in math. You see that? Right there, yeah. Grade 4, we're above the state average in reading and math. Now, overall, K-8, we are slightly below, or actually, we're above the state average. You'll go to MBI.
This is just Cartucket J's.
Well, that was, you can look at Cartucket J's, and you can, at any elementary school, you can also see the district.
That's a district level.
High student performance up there. The district average, you can see that as a district, at the 5th grade, we are a little below the state average in reading and math, as well as in 6th grade. Just slightly below in the 6th grade in reading, but 8 points below in math. So we definitely see a need for emphasis on reading and math instruction at the 5th and 6th grade level. The middle school, we're looking forward to doing the district average. In grade 7, we are pretty well above the average, state average in reading, slightly below in math. We are right at the state average as a district in 8th grade reading, slightly below in 8th grade math. So again, we're starting to see that our focus needs to be on math at 5 to 8, grades 5 to 8. And if you want to pull up a high school report. As a district, we're above average in English 2. We're 1/10 of a point above the state average in Math 1. We obviously think it's a reflection of grade 5 through high school. So we have some reasons to celebrate. We also have some goals to shoot for and improve.
Chairman, if I could go back to 3rd grade and magnify that again for the district at 3rd grade level.
Which school?
Pull up Cartoon J, you can see what the district.
Yeah, see what the district.
High school
Make it big again. District 49.
But you can also see at Cartoon J, that they're significantly above the state average in both reading and math at the 3rd and the 4th grade. Look at 4th grade math score.
And they seem to be consistently be there, so hats off to.
Absolutely.
Is there, we're almost 5% above in math. Am I reading this right?
That's right. If you look at Cartucket J as a school, they're 30 points.
But as a district, we're at 49.1 for the reading,
Yes.
3. And, well, that seems to be a big jump because we used to get hung around 30%, didn't we? Within the 70-30 for reading, 30% deficient, and 70% okay.
Maybe by the old standards.
All by the old standard. That looks, yeah.
What was your question again, Mr.
I was looking at the district on that reading, because it used to be at the end of 3rd grade, it was 30%. Then when we, and I've been watching it since we put in Linda Bell to see if it's, how it's working within the system. And now she said we may have a different tool here that we're doing evaluation with, is that right?
Well, you're talking about not comparing apples to apples.
Okay.
Because this was last year's data. The year before, we had a different test, different standards.
That was at 70-30 or 30%.
Well, and that's also on Reading 3D. We'd have about 30% of our kids by the end of the year that wouldn't be where they needed to be. But as you can see, with new standards, this is not unique to us. That those numbers look kind of low.
Yeah, they have improved.
That's because of the test changing. But if you look at our comparison to the state, then you get a feel for where we are in comparison to the rest of the state of North Carolina.
And if you compare to other schools around us, we compare very favorably to schools around us in the Western region as well.
I think that's the 16, is it 16 or 17 actual cities that make it 17 school districts?
I think so, yes.
That's the,
And it's
the
not,
footprint.
I think it's difficult to look at the regional average. You need to look at what Cartucket is doing compared to other schools, not necessarily just the regional average, because one or two schools can really blow that average up there. But if you compare, for instance, like I have at the high school, since obviously I was there last year, we outscored 7 or 8 schools that are right close to us. So I thought that was a good indication of what a good job our teachers and students are doing. Yeah.
But in that region, you get ranked, right in this country, as used to get ranked within that region, of all the schools, are we getting pulled up?
I don't know that we've done it this year. We've not compared or made that spreadsheet, have we? Looking at this.
We only have fall results, and it's pretty sketchy because there's only 3 EOCs. So I hadn't done any comparison for this year. There is one for last year that I think you shared earlier.
We did move up.
In the fall.
We do need to focus on what we're doing at intermediate. You know, I think it's important to point out too that when you look at grade 4 and grade 8 especially, those are important grade levels to look at because the state, the country compares states based on the NAEP test. And North Carolina is above average in reading and right at the state average, right at the national average in math. So you can see that Macon County compares very favorably to North Carolina, and therefore we could infer that we compare favorably to the rest of the nation. 8th grade we would focus on math.
Any other questions, Dr. Baldwin? Not, we'll move on.
Franklin score was 72 to 32.
The mystery out there.
The board is really paying attention.
Hey, look. That's good. That's good news. Buildings and grounds, unless I'm totally out of whack, Tommy's got me discombobulated here. I think we're good. Earth Environmental Services Proposal Amendment. Mr. Curtis is not here, but
He's turned in his retirement. I think we're going to see less and less. He did explain to me what had happened with this, Mr. Chairman. We had a proposal, a contract from Earth Environmental Services to monitor the wastewater treatment at Palisades. They misunderstood the requirements of that facility. They were under the impression that it was a grade 1 facility which requires a weekly site visit, but it's actually a grade 2 facility which requires daily site visits. So they were not able to provide those services at, I believe it was originally $300 a month. We thought that was a good deal. It was too good of a deal. I think it's probably understandable to visit that site every single day. For us to be able to do it for $300 was unreasonable. But we held out hope. They will do it for $800 a month, which is what they're charging for Nantahala, which is also a grade 2 facility.
plus the 125, so looking at 925 per month.
Yes, and whoever does that, we will have to pay $125 for that. So that's something, that's a non-negotiable. But it's still significantly less than what we were paying when we had a person at our it's pretty much our only option, because more or less we won't shut the facility down.
But I think you could make a motion to be per month.
That's what I was going to say. I talked with Mr. Hennon was involved in this discussion. What we're going to do is, this is We have some options possibly in the future about that facility. So I think what we talked about was getting approval of this on a month-to-month basis. It's not a long-term or an annual contract. Any approval due is simply, and hopefully Earth and Environmental Services will agree, it's just month-to-month in case we want to change.
We're looking at this agreement here, I think that's what is expressed here. And I can assure you that we're pursuing all avenues of getting this off of the school system. And the whole entire health safety facility.
And there is absolutely nothing there that would hold this board anything more than a monthly. Yes.
Well, like I said, we have, yeah.
Changing the wording on that, and say month to month.
That's just what it says. There it says per month and per month. And there's nothing in there, contract, I'm not talking about earlier about any time frame. It's not like we're saying we agreed to this for a year or anything like that. It's just strictly approving on a month-to-month basis.
We do have a septic permit on the, on that site, so if we can have that, have a filtration system put in at a reasonable cost, we'd like to consider that.
And then you said you should shut that thing down, which would be my preference if possible to do that.
We can certainly pursue that.
Anyway, what we have for the board now, board members, this proposal, month to month, it'll be $9.25, and you know, we had a employee doing it, and he no longer is here, so we really, other than just shutting the school down, this is the only option we have at this point in time. So, you hear a motion, any other discussion? Hear a motion?
So moved.
So we have a motion to approve Earth Environmental Services to do it on month-to-month contract for $925 as proposed. We have a motion second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? So moved. Let's see, Coach Raby is here. Franklin High School batting cage update.
If you have those, I can go too.
See, that's good. We'll see if Tim's any good or not. I'm not big news this.
Thank you.
You want to trip off one of those lights, Coach? Just so we get it down.
Oops. I'm not sweet.
Maybe just have to stand it here so you can see it. I think I'll be okay. It won't run on that for some reason. Yeah, I think so.
Can the board see that?
Yeah, I think we see it. So Ryan, if you want to lead us through what we're looking at now,
This
please.
is just what we started with. Just wanted to get a picture before we started, so we can see where we came to so far. Just a couple pictures of it. That's kind of where we're at this time last year, and just a couple more there. And bad disrepair and major safety issues. Here's where we came to. This was with the board money that we used, $25,000. That was for the structure. That was for 2 new batting tunnels and for artificial turf to go down on top of the concrete. That's kind of a closer look at the inside. What we came up with is, and then the next one is just from a distance. That's kind of what we came up with is. After we spent the money, we had some more people, some interest gained in it. We had several more donations, volunteer work, and that's been in. And you can't see it real good. You can see the turf and the batting cages are in place there. When we got the structure done, we realized we had a few drainage issues with the way the slope was in there, and so we had to go ahead and pour the remaining concrete slab and finish that out, which we originally had planned on laying the turf on top of gravel, crusher run compacted. But by pouring that and the retaining wall incorporated with that, that helped with the drainage to keep the water out of there. The engineer's plans that we got from, that was donated from Chris Hanners, said that we had to have, in between these two posts, there had to be a wind shear wall there that helped with the structure being so big, help with wind coming through there and whatnot. So we knew we had to have storage anyway for the mowers and the infill machine there, so we incorporated some storage into that. And again, that was done with donation money and volunteer work as well. And then there's a closer look at the inside with the artificial turf down and the batting tunnels in place. The scaffolding you see there, the maintenance department is currently working on putting lights in there. The lights were bought with donation monies, and then the maintenance providing labor to do so. And that's kind of a breakdown of what you have in front of you there. The first phase of where the money went to, and the donation work that was included in that. And then the following slide is the additional work that's been done through volunteer and donations as well.
When did the turf go up?
I took possession of the turf in June. I ended up having to go pick it up myself. And we put that in, we got it unrolled and put it in place. The final concrete slab, the concrete slab was finished in late November, and then we rolled the turf out when it cured in it was early December, I think. We started winter workouts in 1st of December, and we were ready to go. Everything was ready to go at that point.
And the painting, I know I see that it's getting all wood and
Yes.
everything, it's very, I mean,
Right.
it's not being painted, it's not wood, any
Right.
idea when you might get to paint?
Well, what we've got, we've actually had some interest. The gentleman that's working on it has basically built that whole facilities out there by donation, and he's kind of got the ball rolling and talked to a local contractor here, Mr. Bill, Ronnie Bill, and he's gotten us a great price on metal to go ahead and close the whole thing. And when we do that, we're going to do the top as well, so we won't have to paint it. So we'll have,
Oh, you won't?
that's right, yes.
So you'll probably just have to come in and put pressure wash?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know lots of people are interested in it. So you have been, you were able to, it has been up and running?
Oh, yes. Since first week in December when we started working, that's what we used. I think there was one week when they started hanging the lights that we had to take the cages down so that they could get the scaffolding in there and start running the ductwork, the conduit and stuff in there.
And I guess you probably cleaned, I just had the pictures sent to me, yeah, those so forth. So I guess you guys cleaned up all of that. There was a lot of building material and
Yes.
different things outside.
Yes, well, some of it we've used in the construction, and we're actually having a parent work day this weekend. So we'll continue to clean the rest of the stuff up there, the materials.
Well, another reason I asked, some people asked about, safety concerns, because there's a lot of building materials around in the pictures that they sent. So basically, the 25,000 just kind of got you started. It was certainly not enough money to.
Not to do a complete structure, but it was, and that was, I think, whenever I originally came last year, I showed several different pictures of different cages, and the one that we decided to go with was just the cover and no walls, and that was the class that we talked about.
And I think what's happened too is Coach maybe has moved through this. We've had donations. He's been able to expand what he originally was planning on doing, which included closing those storage units originally. Now he's plans to close the entire structure, which one of the benefits of that is that soccer can practice in there in the case of inclement weather.
So it is open to other people using it?
Yeah, there's
which is a great thing. The community is certainly, it sounds like they've really put in a lot of work.
Absolutely.
Sounds like you have too to make it happen.
It's and all those nets can be taken down relatively easy as well. So.
And it's open to, I mean, if there's other teams that want to use it, like within the county for a batting cage, there's possibilities too.
Yes, yes.
We put that in policy. Dan, do you remember what that policy is? There's a, they have to get the keys from you, don't they, Coach?
Yes, it's a rental, it was basically a rental policy for there's an indoor cage in the old carpentry building at the high school. It's just one batting cage, which there's actually heat in there, which is not at this time of year, but there's a rental policy. The problem we used to have was teams would come in there all the time, and they would use our equipment and stuff, and obviously wear and tear, and then we would have to replace it. So we put a rental policy in place for $100 a year, I think it was, which is very cheap, but it allows us to recoup some of the costs.
So $100 a year?
A year, yes. Which, you know, and right now, we actually had a batting cage open up in one of these storage buildings over here, so that took basically everybody with one team out of our cage. There's only one team that uses it the last 2 years, so right now.
I'm a little slow sometimes, Ryan, so let me make sure I understand this. So the figures of gutter downspouts of concrete, all of that was donated, am I understanding right?
Yes, yeah.
So we're looking at donations, 35, 49, about almost $7,000 donations from this community.
Yeah. Through donations and our fundraiser from last year.
From the kids involved.
Yes.
echo what Stephanie says. I'm always amazed how supportive our communities are when it comes time to do things for our children. It's just amazing. I say a year ago when you came, we weren't very good compared to the other schools, were we, Ryan?
No, we were
I
not.
say now, we're a step above that by far.
That's
Is that
right.
right?
Yes.
Well, it sounds like you're even gonna go a step further than that with having it enclosed.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Big deal. Well, I thank you for your work and thank you for, moving on with it. I know that, and cleaning up, getting something done, and clean up over there.
Thank
And
you
have
guys
a lot
for
of
your
people,
support.
a lot more people using it and, like you said, putting some W's in that baseball.
Let me add one thing to that. Last week, I think Harley works for Finley.
He used
Or
to
somehow
work.
or
He used to work for Mr. Bill, but he's retired from working today.
anyhow, Sheila Penland, somehow or another, through her daddy-in-law, Penland, and Harley was out there, and as you know, our concession stand had big boards in the windows, which didn't look too good. Well, Sheila got donated, and Harley put it in this week, a new window, glass window. All we need now is soccer to step up and do their side, but we got a nice window we can raise, and he's gonna put shades in there, because the sun was coming in when he was working in there, so, that's all gonna be finished probably this week. That's all donated, I mean, that's gonna cost us a penny, so.
Not much time and effort, Mr. Morrison, put in out there at that whole facility.
He started to build it, he said originally.
I don't think so.
I was off in college when it started, and he pretty much did everything himself. Well, not himself, but pretty much. And he's got back in the mix, so that's the help.
As I said, successful to our
Well, good
community.
luck with your season,
Well, thank you very much.
and thank you for the report. And there's lots of people anxious to be using it, and get baseball started.
Underway.
Actually, don't you have a scrimmage this weekend?
We had one
They
last
had one the other
Thursday and
day.
Saturday. Format, it was a different format.
Yeah, it was different than what I used.
Any questions while we have him? Coach Raven, not Will. All right, thank you, Coach, for all your time and effort. And, I think we now have something to be proud of rather than be embarrassed about. Coach Raven. Fund redistributions, business and finance, Angie, Franklin High School. Well, we have two, it looks like, for Franklin. So if you would get us both, and we'll approve those both at the same time.
The first one is just, when they sell fruit, that's the fundraiser for the band department at the high school, it goes into the band fundraising account, and then they distribute it out between chorus and band based on which department sells the most. So this is $3,134.76 going to the chorus account and $7,279.74 going to the band account, based on fundraisers.
Any questions?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Have a motion, second? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Angie.
Next one is general athletics. There is $500 from season pass account going to the cheerleading account to help pay for replacement uniforms that were not turned in last year.
Yeah.
That's $500.
Any questions? Not hear a motion to approve? So moved. Have a motion here, a second. All in favor, so I'm saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. That it, Angie? Dr. Baldwin. Now we come to the nitty gritty, shall we say. Recommendation for 25% of our teachers, which, again, we're just talking about this in general. That's not something we decide anything. Go ahead, Dr. Baldwin.
At our last school board meeting, I presented three options to consideration. I also presented these, actually Mr. Moore and Ken presented these to all faculty through a survey, an online survey. And the results of that were that the teachers in our district would prefer, according to this survey, that our 25% be chosen in the district-wide lottery. And since, in all the discussions that we've had of how to address this new legislation that has been forced upon us, we've not been able to find anything that is fair to all teachers involved. And based on that and the fact that the majority of the teachers that responded to this survey chose this, then my recommendation would be to the board that we go with a district-wide lottery to determine 25% of our teachers are going to be offered a 4-year contract in response to them giving up their career status rights and a $500 raise.
But if you're a student, but if you're selected out of the lottery, you don't have to take it.
You do not have to take it.
Right.
However we decide to choose those 25%, we will, once we come up with that list of, I think it's 68 people, right, Mr. Moore?
Right.
We'll offer the contract to those 68 folks, and at that point, they have an opportunity to enact their decision as to whether or not to accept that contract or to decide to hold on to their career status rights until 2018.
And we're under no compulsion that we have to then reoffer once we've chosen. We have 68, that's where we go, and all of them turn it down, we're done.
It's a one-time deal. We offer it one time. If they turn it down, there is no second choice for us.
See, the only wrinkle of that being, I don't know if Dr. Baldwin's given any further thought to the opt-out option. It is possible, and I think some districts had at least discussed giving everybody upfront the option to say, well, I know that I'm one of the ones that's eligible to be offered this, but I'm telling you right now, just take me out of it, I don't want it. You sort of have effectively picked somebody else if you don't leave them in the pool to be selected. That would sort of maximize the number of people that.
And we can create an opt-out form for teachers who decide that they don't want to be a part of this process. They can come to us. We can even do it online, so that if they fill out the form and decide that they want to opt out of the process entirely, rather than doing a petition, they can give us that information. We would withdraw their name from the lottery or from the selection process, whatever the board decides to use to come up with 25%.
Yeah.
Let's say, the thing about it is,
If all of them opt out, then no one in Macon County will receive that 4-year contract.
but let's say we don't put that opt-out out there, and we could just, and we picked out the 68, and then they all opted out. I think that would almost be better than putting it out there and letting them opt out. Let's pick out, pick out the 68.
The only thing with that, though, is if we have teachers that we, I don't speak for these, but they may have a strong feeling about not wanting to participate. And if they don't want to participate, I would say that we do have this opt-out form available to them.
And I understand that, and I think that's wonderful, but if we don't give them that opt-out, it's gonna be a good feeling for all of them when we put it to 68 people and all 68 of them turn it down. And if we don't, then you're gonna have 3 or 4, and then we're gonna have that, I just hate to see those, the animosity in the colleagues having to go back and forth because 3 or 4 picked it out, and maybe those 3 or 4 picked it, they have that right, but it would be, seems like to me it would be great if all 68 of them, we didn't do the opt-out and 68 of them turned it down.
Well, I think, I agree with your point, I think it would be, but I think at the end of the day, chances are we're gonna have 3 or 4, maybe more than that, will, because of financial need, they may choose to accept that contract. I think that.
And it's gonna be more likely if you already have all the ones that are opted out in there, because you're gonna have, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know.
I understand, we've discussed this 20 ways from Sunday several times. We've gone over this ground several times. I agree with you.
Dr. Bell, let's revisit the time frame. Basically, you have to submit by law, unless we take action there, you have to, per the law, you have to submit a recommendation to us as of now, March. When does that have to come?
Actually, there doesn't have a.
All it says is the contract shall be offered and accepted. I don't know how they presumed anybody would accept it, but they did. Be offered and accepted by June 30th.
June 30th, yes.
We do have time.
I have a question on that petition that you signed. There was one of them that said 94%. that other 6%, was that teachers that just said, I'm not signing it? Or did you have some teachers missing that day that didn't get to sign it? Do you know?
I know at my school, there were 2 teachers that did not. And I talked to one to explain to her, this is before the attorney came to talk, and they're just confused. I don't understand why anybody would sign away their due process. But there are some people that are confused, they're afraid to sign petitions, period. They don't want to put their name on a petition.
Very small handful.
I think that at the end of the day, we will have someone that does choose to accept that contract. Teachers haven't had a raise, had 1% raise in the last 7 or 8 years, so I think the likelihood that someone needs that extra $500, I think that's pretty real. I agree with you. I wouldn't give it up. I wouldn't give up career established rights for $500, but there are people that are in different circumstances, and they may have to do it.
But I like what, Ms. McCall said, but we'll talk about it again. I like that idea of it getting out there to the 68, and then when they deny it, doesn't get asked again. If you ask us to opt out, then you're eliminating those of us who will opt out, and then you're offering.
We're not asking anyone to opt out at this point.
No, I know, but
at the same time, if you came to me and said, I want to opt out, I don't want to be a part of this silly process at all, then I think we should have an opportunity to allow someone to do that.
I think the point to be taken home about that is it has to, for us to apply what the law appears to be, unless Guilford County is successful and, Godspeed to them, but to apply what it appears to be, it cannot be, we cannot interfere as a district in making that offer and letting it be accepted or not. It's got to all be on the teachers to decide either if there is an opt-out provision, that option that we make available, or just everybody decides to be offered, whoever gets offered is offered, and they all say no. It's got to be up to the teachers.
Let me get you have 268 teachers, and you have to offer a contract of 68. Then let's say we had 250 as example that opted out, so we have 10 remaining in that pool. We'll now put those 10 remaining in a position where they would have to make a public choice either to accept or not accept, correct? Versus a random selection may avoid that transpiring, where if they weren't the ones that sit in random selection, they would never be put in that position. Am I missing something, or what?
I think that, do we have to make it public, the ones that opt out?
No, and that has been something that Dean and I talked through, and I think we've talked through some, is whether or not, I think that there's a good argument to be made, and this has been my take on it, is that when this selection is made, and whoever those names are that are to be offered that contract, that is an item of negotiation, and that is a personnel file matter. So it would take us going into closed session to have the board approve the list of names that have been selected, and they're the ones that get offered. But if you treat it as personnel file information, it's not public until that contract is either accepted, and then it gets ratified at your next board meeting. So there's not, if you do it that way, those 10 people you're talking about don't all have, everybody running to them saying, what are you going to do? Because nobody knows until after it's already been offered.
But still, I know we're until the informal grapevine, it's going to get out, those were the ones that were offered. I mean, we all know that.
Well, and you would also know, because the next board meeting, it would show up on your, probably just consent agenda, but it would say all these people had accepted a new 4-year contract.
And that is something that I think we all have to understand that there will be folks that accept this contract. It's going to be on all of us to make sure that we understand that not everyone is in the same position to give up that contract or to accept that contract. So I think we've all got to accept that and work with those folks whether they choose to turn down the contract or to give up their career status rights and take that $500 raise. We're all in this together now. We'll all be in this together in 2014-15.
So basically, we're at the stage, Dr. Baldwin, your recommendation is or are you giving us a recommendation for us to consider moving forward?
My recommendation is that you consider using a district-wide lottery. John, do you see any legal issues with us going that route?
I mean, there are legal issues all up and down all of this thing. I think.
Well, we paying you the big dollar.
That's why I'm comfortable making this recommendation.
Well, they did first call it the School Board Attorney Job Security Act of 2015. That was the initial name of it.
Yeah, there are.
Mr. Bill said it right. It's lawsuit flypaper. I don't know. I just don't know. We could guess. There's problems any way to do this.
Yes. That's the answer I was looking for.
It depends.
Well, and you know, I'm going to blank on her name, the attorney for Guilford County Schools, Jill Wilson, said that when they first brought up this thing and they started bringing out these lists of 25% names, she said, let's just call this the list of plaintiffs.
She's hired more people in her law firm now.
Yeah, I know, I'm sure. I do like the fact that the straight up 25% selection avoids us ever having to find two people that we know are identically qualified to be in that 25% selection and saying you're in and you're not, and we don't even know why.
Yes.
It's the best bad choice. Cleanest dirty shirts, exactly.
It's your royalty, as I say.
Yeah.
So basically, we're at the stage, ladies and gentlemen of the board, where our superintendent's brought us what information he has for us to consider. We technically are not going to be required to make a choice until June 30th, am I understanding right?
Well, I think I have to bring, by law, I have to bring a list to you to approve, then we have to give that list out, they have to accept the contract. So we've got a timeline there that we have to work back from, which is June 30th.
It's all got to be completed by then.
They have to receive the contract offer and accepted it by June the 30th. So we've got to work back from that date.
And so that probably means the list and the offers are going to need to be accepted at your May meeting, because if we wait till June, that wouldn't give them any kind of period of time to.
In that process, in that time frame, this board can look at all our options,
I'd say that
moving forward,
probably
or doing all those things.
approve one of these processes by March or April.
Or we may
You don't,
choose
you
to.
can't go ahead and just approve this district-wide.
If you're ready to, but it's up to the board. You don't have to tonight, I think is.
If that bar graph there is not going to change, right, Mr. Burrow?
No, that was a survey.
That's a survey. We're going to do once a week? We're going to do it once a week, or what?
Done all the surveys on one.
Is this it?
Yes, this
This is it, right there it is. Then let's go ahead and make the motion, I'll go ahead and make the motion to choose 25% for district-wide. Let's go do one once a week.
And probably what we'll do to come up with this lottery is there is a random selection process in Microsoft Excel. We put the names in there, hit the button, and the first 68 names that come up, that's going to be who we are.
See, I
They win the million.
That sounds good.
Well, Ms. Schultz, before you make your motion, I'm going to tell you my thoughts. I'm not ready to decide anything today. I appreciate what Darlene brought to us, petitions that carries a lot of weight for me to consider. There's a lot of things that I think this board in general has to consider, because it's not just, we base up more than one choice. We can proceed to go, we can decide to follow Guilford County's example.
Yeah, we'll just all get fired. I won't have to worry about
There's a lot of parameters that we need to look at, so to be honest with you, Gary, I'm going to sit back and I have to contemplate things. I want to take this and think about it personally before I make any type of decision, so that's just me. I'll let the other board members say their piece also.
I believe in miracles, Gary, so I'm thinking that between now and next
You're going to do
month,
this once every day, then.
between now and next month, the legislation is going to have a,
Epiphany.
yeah, epiphany, and say, what the heck were we thinking?
And don't get me wrong, Gary, I think you're right. If we get that stage, that speaks volumes to me. That's pretty much, that's hard to argue with what we're going to do.
I think Mr. Bill's point is right. They're not going to change legislation. We're going to be doing this.
I know,
This
I know,
year.
just
Yeah.
let me
You're gonna
be
deal
my
with it.
own world here.
But we do have litigation going on right now, Mr. Bill, that could make it, but a judge could enter a injunction saying you
I
cannot
think
follow through or
that's
not.
more on the tenure issue, I think. I don't, I think
That's just
the
tenure.
25%.
I thought NCAE had actually brought on the 25%. Well, am I missing that?
Guilford might have.
No, I thought there was a legal action.
Guilford's just not gonna follow the law. The lawsuits
But what's gonna be,
on the tenure.
what's gonna be difficult is if there is 10 teachers in the state of North Carolina that want that $500 raise, that's gonna be hard for a judge to look at them and say, we're not gonna go this route.
Yeah, I don't see any way out of it. I don't see how I mean, as much as I support Guilford's position, legally, I don't see how it's tenable.
I think with time, you'll see that they'll have to fall in line like the rest of the boards. We're part of that and abide by the law. I don't think you can have renegades out here. If you open up that box, then let's just go, next year we'll have the calendar. Let's start on August the 2nd or somewhere like that.
Okay.
I second that.
But if we don't,
Whatever
that is. Let's start on August, the first week in Monday, if we can violate the law. But now, we talked about that one time, well, hey, we'll just take the lick. But, you know, when you started this job here, you came up here and you put your hand on the Bible and you swore that you'd uphold the constitutional laws of North Carolina. I don't think you can pick and choose what laws you want.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
I think we have to, we're bound by the laws, like it or not, we're bound by the law.
Can I just add one thing? The resolution that I presented to you, the sample one, does not say we aren't going to do it. It just is saying to the state board, North Carolina, that we would like not use the monies elsewhere. It's not saying we're going against the law. And at the very last one, it says that we're urging the North Carolina General Assembly to repeal the 25% contract. It's not saying you're not going to do it. It's just saying to our state board of North Carolina, who agreed to this, that as a county school board, you're disagreeing with them. It's not saying you're not going to follow the law.
Yeah. What we'll do is, Darlene, we'll have our attorney review it, and if very possible, we might approve it.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that.
Or maybe tonight. Anyway, Mr. Shields, I interrupted you and did that. Anything else? Any other questions that the board might have on this wonderful issue while we're talking about?
They got a great second.
All right, moving on then.
We did have 137 respondents out there, which is pretty good.
I saw that. Actually, that I should have said that. I thought that was good for in terms of.
One's up by 50%.
Was the survey sent out district-wide or only teachers who were eligible?
It was sent out district-wide to faculties.
Okay, so to teachers who are not eligible for 25% or could have possibly taken the survey?
They could have.
We're going to take the only ones that responded written were those at the effective time. I missed it.
What I'm here for.
But the people who choose to take, they still have to go to that 3-year, they still have to go into
Yes.
that. What she's talking
They have
about.
to have been in Macon County for 3 years, and they have to be proficient in that.
Moving on, Board of Education information, we've touched on this briefly, Dr. Baldwin, both on the Strategic Planning Committee and Emergency Task Force. I think they've had all the funding stands. I don't think about that. So, Strategic Planning Committee, Dr. Baldwin, any further information?
Just to give you an update, we are in the process of developing a strategic planning committee. Board members are welcome to join that committee or offer that opportunity at this point. But Ms. Cantrell is forming the committee to get folks together. We'll have met for our next board meeting, but that's our plan.
And the Emergency Task Force?
At our last principal meeting, we met with the Sheriff's Department, the Franklin Police Department, and David Key, the Emergency Services Coordinator for Macon County. And we discussed the need during that meeting for countywide Macon County Schools Emergency Task Force to be formulated. We'll also do that, but Mr. Moore is heading that up at this point. And we'll have hope to have had our first meeting by the next board meeting that will make sure the intent of the process is to have a uniform emergency action plan across the district. that teachers and students that go from school to school will be under the same plan. And law enforcement will be, have a more clear understanding of what's going on at each school.
Any questions, Dr. Baldwin?
Board members are also welcome to be a part of that task force as well.
Coming events.
Can you send out dates or anything?
Yes.
I'll let you know. It'll be probably in a couple of weeks, I would think.
Let me know about it.
Yes, sir.
Coming events, Dr. Baldwin?
On Monday, March 10th, I'll be, Monday, March 10th to Wednesday, March 12th, I'll be at the Next Generation Superintendent's Training. There's also a superintendent's meeting in Raleigh. I'll be there on the afternoon of the 12th. There's a lot of legislation and things to be discussed, as we've seen at this meeting as well as many others. Our next board meeting is on March the 24th, and that will be at Highlands School. I'd also like to give you an update on Renee. She's doing very well at this point. She's had a little bout with the stomach bug and set her back some, but she has been against doctor's orders coming in and helping with the agenda. So I want to thank her for that. Give you an update on her progress, as well as thank Angie and Miss Linda Heaton for their help in putting the agenda together. This week.
Bless you.
Been done without. Absolutely.
With the board's indulgence, let me revisit the petition here, the resolution. I may have not paid enough attention to that. I think what Ms. Conlon said was very appropriate. And maybe the board would like to follow through with this. I don't know if I gave it proper vetting, shall we say. Basic's resolution doesn't say that we are not going to take part. It's just a resolution, basically, and we might let John tweak it a little bit. I've looked at it, where we're just sending that resolution saying, whereas legislation requires us to do it, we're not in favor of it. And while you tell us we have to, we would urge you to consider using those monies for another source. So I don't think I gave this proper vetting. I apologize to the board. So I'm going to reopen that part of our discussion.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to take a look at it. I do think it's wise just never to act on something you've just seen in the same meeting anyway. There have been other resolutions that were had some more debatable notions that are in this one. I do think it looks pretty good. But I also think you ought to consider, and we maybe need to bring back up and take a look at again, Mr. DeVille's drafted resolution that the board passed. Because I do feel like you've effectively already told them this. And would it hurt to tell them again? Probably not. But just something to consider.
Okay.
That was going to be my question. Have we already done this? Or did we get to the, was it the voucher one? I thought
Well, we're actually part of the voucher litigation, so we had a big win on Friday.
Right. But now, have we already done one about the disapproval of the 25%?
It was back when the I don't know that the 25% I don't know that horror had been, dropped on us at that point. It was when it was still this legislation, and that's what I want to look back at. If we can find the resolution that was passed in June, maybe, something like that. Just send it back out to the board members just to look at, but we could look at this one as well. I don't know that it included the 25% back then, but we said leave teacher tenure alone, please, and didn't stop them, but.
I'd like to say before we leave, but I don't think I speak for everyone, but I think the board should do this by 18. This was a lot of information. Things like that. I think the board should be commended.
We started. Right.
We have to say Stephanie kicks me over here. When I get caught up in more, she's got sharp toes, and they get my attention. Yeah, what can I say? Thank her. What is the board's pleasure? Do we want to, and we want to get out of here, I promise, do we want to explore this, another petition about the 25% specifically, or what is the board's wishes? in terms
I would
of-
like for him to explore it. I'm like John, I think we should make a decision. I would love for him to give us his feedback.
I have
Give
an
me-
opinion on that. I think it encourages our teachers. When we let,
Know that-
when
know
we
we're
do
listening
something
to
like
them.
this, I
Right.
think it encourages our teachers to know that we are on their side.
So it's just
I think
another,
it's a good idea.
an additional amount, so.
I don't know about what John thinks about
Oh, no, there is some-
I do feel like it encourages our teachers.
So do I hear sentiment and possible motion that we authorize Mr. Henry to draw up a petition along the lines of what we submitted, that we can send voicing our opposition to the 25% legislation
Yes.
and develop it at the next board meeting?
Yes.
All right. Have a motion that we authorize Mr. Henry to take what's been presented and to basically bring to our March meeting a resolution for the board to consider sending, opposing the 25%. Do I hear a second? Have a motion second. I think all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. I think it's very good. Thank you. Board, sorry for bringing it up. I just love it.
Don't be sorry.
I just was. I feel like I was kind of fuel that, didn't pay any attention to it. Anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Peter, for coming in. Thank everybody for being here. And like Chris, we got through that pretty good. Thank you.
Information.